Welcome to Pharmacy View, Technology and Pharmacy Business podcast series, where we provide regular interviews with pharmacists and key industry people within the Australian pharmacy and associated industry. In each podcast, we look to discuss aspects of pharmacy operation and how technology is improving or interacting with each guest's current role or pharmacy-related business. I'm your host, Scott Carpenter, and today's guest is sponsored by Shopfront Solutions, leading the way in digital marketing and communications, providing a cloud-based platform for pharmacies to manage all of their digital messaging and print-based collateral. For more information on the Shopfront Solutions digital platform, simply go to the website at shopfrontsolutions.com.au. I'm talking today with Kavita Nadan, Managing Partner Pharmacist at Chemist Discount Centre in Endeavour Hills. Welcome, Kavita.
Hi, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, Kavita, we haven't actually met. I'm sure we will bump into each other at some point in time. But the reason we're talking today was that you wrote an article and published it on LinkedIn, and it really caught my attention because I guess you popped up in my mind as a pharmacist that embraced technology. So for anyone that doesn't know who Kavita is, who is Kavita Nadan? Where are you today and what are you up to?
Sure. Okay. Well, I guess first and foremost, I am a pharmacist. I started in pharmacy, as a junior. So I've been pretty much in the industry for a good chunk of my life. So started at the age of 16, worked as a junior. Didn't know I was going to get into pharmacy school at that stage, hadn't gone through the whole year 12 VCE. But once I did, I went into pharmacy school, went on to become a manager down in Churchill, Gippsland, which was a great experience, to be honest. I grew up in Gippsland in the rural area, but to go back there and to manage a store there was a really good experience, both in the front of developing myself, but also the kind of customers, etc., that I came across and some of the processes and things that I got to experience as a result. But having done that for a few years, I decided once I got married that I wanted to come back a little bit closer to home. And that's how I got into partnership. And so now I'm currently managing partner, as you said, at Chemist Discount Centre in Endeavour Hills and have been there for the last 8 years. And it's been a great experience. I mean, owning my own store and having a great team to run it with has really been what's actually driven me and given me some of the skills that I've needed to be able to do my job as a pharmacist. So, yeah.
That's great. And again, if we then, I guess, link into how we got to this conversation around your article, what actually drove you to publish that article? What was behind that from your perspective?
Sure. I guess when we talk about my article, it's probably good to pull it back right to the start. I mean, let's go back, say, like 10 years ago. We were in an area of change where things were really getting driven by innovation and startups. And, that was the era of when Facebook started coming up and Twitter. And having a husband who's in the IT space and very passionate about it, mind you, he used to throw around this saying, software is eating the world. Now, I don't know who said it, so please don't ask me to find that out. I know my husband will probably be shaking his head if you knew this, but... That's
okay. He'll listen to this, no doubt.
Yeah, correct. But having said that, it got me really interested in, what does that actually mean? So he would say that, basically software is now, the demise of that whole traditional business model was really a focus now. So I started to get a lot more interested in this space, and being around him, we started to discuss a lot of ideas. But predominantly, I guess if you think about it, industry and the whole society was changing as a whole. So, for example, like Netflix, initially a rental by mail service, just different to the whole traditional model of your video shops and going to, a video store, renting out a video. That's made it part of your usual pastime.
Yes.
Netflix challenged that and they said, you know what, how about we create something different where you don't have to physically go somewhere. You can rent something online, a video or a DVD. And when Netflix went to Blockbuster and asked if they would acquire them, I think it was for $50 million. Blockbuster just pretty much laughed them out of that meeting. And Netflix now is worth $20 billion, for example. That gives you an example of, Blockbuster didn't obviously have that same vision and they didn't want to challenge the norm and see that they could actually challenge the traditional way of doing stuff. So this was a really good example of, your early adopters, your visionaries and the ones who were ready to take risks versus the ones who weren't, who were a little bit more conservative, still wanted to keep doing the tried and the tested, still going along with what was just, if it's working, why change it kind of mentality.
Yes. Yep.
And which also got, if you think about that sort of group of people, you tend to think about, your big financial institutions as well. And obviously they've got bigger risk in terms of money, etc. But they also wanted to start to play in this space. So I don't know if you remember the ING ads. I think it had that comedian, Billy Connolly, who used to do the ads. Yeah. And I was thinking about it, like, I don't think you will see a Westpac branch or an ANZ branch, everywhere, nearly in every suburb. But ING tends to do a lot of their banking online and a lot of their marketing online. And that kind of started this whole wave of the banks getting involved in this tech space, or in this innovation space, I would say. And like CommBank started their whole online banking. ANZ, they also partnered with Apple Pay. Now, this partnership allowed them to have exclusive arrangement where, they would just act as, so they partnered with Apple Pay, and this helped for them to be seen as an innovator on the market, which also allowed them to increase their credit card sales and just be seen as someone who's to be taken seriously in the tech space. Now, I guess what this whole thing ties back to is if these large corporations were doing it, then clearly, pharmacy being a larger group as well, we can do it, but there's something holding us back. And what is it? We tend to, I think, as pharmacists, we just inherently tend to be a little bit more risk averse. We like things to be a little bit more tried and tested. And, there's nothing wrong with that, because the reason we do this is because at the forefront of our mind is always going to be that we need to be aware of patient care. That's the first and foremost. We can't have anything compromise that. Also, obviously privacy and confidentiality around this is a massive talking point and discussion point. And also, I think a lot of pharmacists fear that getting too much technology involved can potentially lose that human touch as well. Something that is very valuable to our profession, because we need to be seen. We're a client-facing profession.
First and foremost, absolutely.
First and foremost, correct. And I think a lot of the times as pharmacists, as I said before with the whole Blockbuster thing, why change it if it's not broken? So, which also brings up that whole resistance to change. I'll give you an example with the fax machine. So, during COVID, when the peak of it all, we had a lot of, in terms of patients couldn't get to see their doctors. So obviously the whole protocol around how prescriptions were sent to pharmacies changed. And this involved doctors directly faxing or email the prescription to the pharmacy. So doctors would be sending it directly to the pharmacy. Patients would come and collect it from the pharmacy. This created a whole new change in the workflow and processes that followed. Now, e-scripts or electronic prescribing had not taken off then. So faxes were probably taking about 90% of how scripts were being sent to the pharmacy.
Okay, yes.
But come 2021, e-scripts has really taken off. And yet if I look at how scripts are still being sent to the pharmacy, we're still faxing. We're probably still getting 70% of the scripts is still coming through the fax machine.
On a fax machine, which I know historically is driven by the aged care facilities in a lot of...
As well, yeah. Yeah, correct. And doctors and medical centres. I remember I had to send one of my staff members out to a medical clinic to help them with their emails, because they had never had to email something off, like especially a prescription, to a pharmacy before, just to help them just add that extra layer of how they can get information across to us. And you think about it like, something like a fax machine. Yes, you can send that fax off, but who's on the other end receiving that fax? You can't ultimately determine that the privacy will be maintained for this document that you are sending off. Yeah. But yet we use it every day because it's comfortable for us. And we don't see that it's, but the problem again is the fact that potentially technical problems could occur where we can't send the faxes. 90% of the time people are calling the doctors and us back and forth saying, "Has the fax arrived? No, it hasn't. Call your clinic." Back and forth we go. If you had an app, for example, to be able to securely send documents, it might not just be scripts, it might be other things, that would go from one secure channel to another, and you could just receive that in a matter of minutes or instantly.
Yes. And in a lot of cases, you'd receive it without a black line down through the middle of the page.
Correct. Changing the toner, this and that. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, that's another issue with the faxes we receive, is trying to decipher what's going on with all the grainy writing that's on the pieces of paper. You know what? It's part of our job to read all this stuff and translate it all. About it, I guess, within half a decade, and I was thinking about within the half a decade that we've had in the last 7 years, we've had a little bit of innovation, so quite a bit of innovation. But I think we're just really getting stuck into the digital era in pharmacy. And having said that, now's the time we really need to try and change that mindset. So when we talk about that, I guess we need to start to think, we're going to be, and I agree, like in terms of how much we've had put onto us in the last year or so has been massive. We've had within dealing with the pandemic in itself was a massive effort in itself. But then having to change our work processes, our workflows, just to be able to deal with patient care, prescriptions. So you've had e-prescriptions, which have been probably one of the biggest players in the market at the moment. And
Yes.
and then, MedAdvisor, the whole SMS system, changing all that it's been very trying of pharmacists. And I totally understand that, when you get too many things put onto you, it can be quite challenging. But I think if we try and start to embrace this technology and see it as, ways to be able to increase efficiencies, and automation is going to lead to that, so that we can deal with the more admin side of things can be done, so that then you are more available to be able to have more of a human touch with your patients. Right now, an e-script for me to take that in takes probably 10 seconds max if it works correctly. So I can get that patient's details scanned straight into my computer, their date of birth, their phone number, everything, rather than having to manually go through all that and spend close to, 3 to 4 minutes. You're then doing all that admin work is being taken care of. Now I have the ability to go out there and counsel my patient, spend time building that rapport with my customers. So it's actually not a deterrent to this human touch. It actually is going to enhance it from the way that I see it.
And it's interesting that you've raised that or mentioned that, because certainly a few of my previous guests from a pharmacist perspective, that's been one of their key points as well, is that, yes, there's a whole lot going on, but first and foremost, where they tend to be a little bit wary is if it's actually going to become an onerous task and actually detract from their ability to be the face to the customer. So again, you've just really reinforced that from your perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm finding. And I said this to a colleague. I'm like, I feel like I've been able to have more of a chat with my customers lately, because that whole process of just handling the pieces of paper and getting data into the system is being taken care of. And this is where we want to get to. So if we're talking about a change in mindset, we have to have this open to change, open to failure, and obviously not at the detriment to our customers ever, but the ability to be open to new things, to be able to better our own systems and our own processes in store. And I guess one of the things would be that if I have experience with anything, is just to be able to put your hand up and say, hey, yeah, we'll give it a go. And we did that when we rolled out the new cloud software for Fred Next, I guess.
Excellent segue to our next point. That was great. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so that was probably one of the best and most involving experiences that I've had in pharmacy. Obviously, everyone's aware of Fred software, and, it's a dispensing software and does a whole heap of other things. But we were the first pharmacy to roll out the Fred Next cloud software, so the dispensing software, and that was back in 2015 that we really got the project started. And it was a massive project. It had so many facets to it, so many people involved. There was a lot of prep work that was required before we could even think about rolling this out in store. We had several meetings. I remember going with my colleague pharmacist plus my retail manager out to the Fred offices and sitting down with their core people and going through the actual software, going through all the features and having an input in all of this, which was bizarre. I'm like, why do they want to hear what we have to say? But they did, because we were the ones on site. We were the ones in the battle zone. So we had to be able to, feel comfortable and know that this product is going to be able to do what we need it to do. And not only was it obviously the dispensing software, but we needed our retail manager, because it was the point of sale system as well that was being, affected, and potentially all of my staff needed to know everything that went around it as well. So we had a lot of staff trainings around that. We also had to have an understanding that, there will be things that will need to be ironed out. It's not going to be the perfect product from day one. And once we got that understanding in our head, we were able to have a little bit more of a lot more open mind towards how we approached this whole project.
As well. Yeah. And look, on that, something we didn't necessarily discuss offline, but I recall sitting on a plane to Perth, would have been around about this time, and the person sitting next to me was a gentleman by the name of Paul Naismith. And I've known Paul for quite a few years, and he was talking to me about the new platform and the trials and the challenges that came with it. And to reinforce, I think your opening point was that his words at that time, which I remember really clearly, was that, from his platform and efficiency perspective, this was going to be the future. But from getting an engagement in a pharmacy perspective, there were obviously these challenges around change. And I think that comes back to that early point, is that by nature, pharmacists tends to be risk adverse, and therefore, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. You're going to ask me to change, and how am I going to change my routine? What impacts is it going to have? Am I going to be here for longer hours and that kind of thing? But obviously today, that platform is now operational and providing efficiency in your pharmacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It wasn't overnight. It's probably taken, up until now, and this product is still evolving. We're not even probably there at its full capacity yet. So, and what was required was this constant feedback mechanisms just to help iron out all this stuff out, because it's through that you can then help it to evolve and enhance and get to where it needs to be. But it needed a lot of teamwork around that. And I guess we were put in a really unique position because being the trial store, we were able to have enough feedback to be able to shape that product. And that's what you get when you put, as I said before, put your hand up and say, hey, let's do it. Because then you can understand the ins and outs of it and can help to shape that product to how you think it will best fit your store or your environment or your industry. And another good thing that came out of it was the fact that we developed a really good relationship with the Fred team. Like, I remember getting along really well with the team that we had dedicated to us. And, we could call them anytime, any day, any hour of the day, and they would just be on board with it. And that provided a great user experience on both ends, I think.
As well, yeah. And again, I know from my interactions with the Fred team, it's the same kind of thing, is that, yes, whilst there's a business sitting behind this platform, it's still very much about the user experience and the customer experience and the customer acceptance, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. And ultimately, that's what we should be aiming for, is the user experience should be great. And when we talk about it on a pharmacy level, that user experience should be great for us as the pharmacy, and especially for our customers and our
customers as well. Yeah. So that's, I guess, where you're at today. And again, if I come back to this, how did we begin this conversation? It was around the article that you wrote. So you're obviously very passionate about IT, digital technology in the digital age. And I think your example with the Blockbuster is a good one, because, I deal with businesses both in pharmacy and outside of pharmacy. And someone that's got a very successful business today, had this really good idea 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. And so when it became a success, it's almost like, well, that was what I set out to do. Why would I now want to change? I'm kind of comfortable with where I am. But you look across even recent years, carnage isn't quite the right word, but, brands and businesses that we've been involved with, that we've known about, have disappeared or are slowly disappearing because someone else has come up with a new idea. And ultimately, that's what this is about. You've embraced change, or you're embracing change, but you're still, I think, sitting back wondering, well, actually, what's next? So what is next? Where do you think this is going to go?
That's right, Scott, and you've put it perfectly, because I think, what's next, none of us really knows. What is the next innovation? What's next on the market? There is so many opportunities out there right now. But what I know is that we need to now think about how we can use in terms of how we change our mindset, but as I've said before, is to think about a few things in terms of embracing the changes and the innovation that are coming to us and getting thrown to us at such a fast rate.
Right.
In terms of, say, groups, I think, for them, as we mentioned the ANZ example, they partnered strategically with somebody who had the tech. They didn't necessarily have it themselves, but they knew to partner with someone to be able to then, go out and innovate and been seen on the market as innovators and someone in the space. So for pharmacy groups, I think it's important that they're probably doing this, and they are doing this already, is using or leveraging off external platforms to enhance their offerings. I mean, good examples of these are, Click and Collect, which is a massive innovation to the market at the moment. Your loyalty programs, another great offering that a lot of pharmacies are giving to their customers. So these all, weren't absolutely built in within the group, but they have used or partnered with people to be able to develop it or get this out there to the rest of the market. And then it makes them appear, and it does help them to appear as innovators in the digital transformation space. So I guess for us at store level or as pharmacists to then be able to use this technology and to embrace it, we need to first and foremost, obviously, not be fearful of it. So we need to say, hey, this is happening. Let's get in there. One of the things is fail first, fail hard, obviously without any detriment to anybody else or patient. Yeah. But it's like jump in, give it a go. All else fails, get back on the bike and keep going, right?
Yes.
So, no software will ever be fit for purpose from day one. Having that at the back of your mind. I mean, eScripts is one example of that. Now, it's funny with eScripts, you can see that there's so much potential. It's still a work in progress right now. And my pharmacy student and I have this joke every Monday, and it's usually due to some updates or whatever might be going on, that we will notice most Mondays we walk in and, eScripts might be down, the platform will be down. What we have done is just to help to develop some processes around working with that so that we in turn are not making our customers wait, it's not affecting workflow, but we know that, these things happen. So let's change let's change some of our processes in store to be able to deal with these things that do occur.
Yeah, so it's almost, whilst you've embraced a platform, don't necessarily throw the old one out or have it parked. And, the example I am old enough to remember this, and I'm not sure if you are, but I certainly in my younger days used the old credit card machine, the click-clack machine. And the reality is today is that if an FPOS goes down, and we see it when the networks do go down, people actually don't know what to do. It's almost like I can't transact with you because I can't process your credit card. But a smart operator or a street smart operator will find a way to solve that problem for that customer then and there, get them on their way, and then fix the problem when it all comes back up again. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? It's having a redundancy plan for the major platforms, or be reliant on them from an efficiency point of view, but don't not think that something could go wrong at some point in time.
Correct. You cannot wholly and solely rely on that, and that's it. We never close our doors. Even if there's a power outage, we'll close the doors, but we'll never stop servicing our customers. Yeah. Yeah, and that has to be maintained at all times. And so as a result, I think, knowing that things will keep evolving. Like, and a good example of that is, for example, MedAdvisor. When it first came out, it was a very simple product, which was just a SMS messaging platform to the customers.
Yep.
Get their phone number, send them a text saying, hey, these scripts are ready to be collected or, due to be renewed. They send back a yes, you get their files or get them to bring your scripts in, done. That's just how it worked. That was the start. Fast forward a few years later, and now they have an app. And what this app has allowed is for them to have for the customers and the patients to have greater visibility around their own prescriptions. They have more control. They have more power. They have a lot more, transparency and ownership of their own health and their own health outcomes. And it opens up a lot more conversation around patient care with the pharmacist. So you're not only just telling them, here's a script, come get it filled. We can have more discussions around it because they have that visibility now.
And in effect, it's almost like the administration side of the interaction is managed by the platform, which again, knowing that just happens, gives you more face time than with the customer. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely. And I think if we can start to have these things, in process or in our mind, then we're going to be well positioned to be able to embrace all the things that are coming our way. Whether it's now, and I said in my blog, the future is now. Like, we really need to start thinking this way to be able to move forward.
Yeah. And look, Kavita, that's been really good to chat today. I'll make sure that I put a link to your blog so that anyone that's listened, it's been one thing for you and I to talk about it. You wrote it, I've read it, and hopefully some other people have read it, but I'll put a link to that so that people can also read it. And if a pharmacist or someone wanted to get in contact with you, just through LinkedIn is a good option.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great option. So, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have a chat. Always open.
So, Kavita, thanks very much for your time today. That's been really good to chat. I've enjoyed it. I look forward to, as soon as we can, actually catching up face to face. Now that we're a little bit more, not quite relaxed, but at least we're allowed out in Victoria. It's and you're not too far from me, so I'll even, if I need to, come and pop over and see you in the pharmacy. So.
Oh, absolutely, Scott. You're welcome anytime. And it was great. I love talking about this, and you've been a great host to be able to discuss all this with. So thank you so much.
Not a problem at all. Thanks for your time today.
No worries. Take care.
Thank you for listening today. Pharmacy View is a technology-focused podcast provided by Melbourne-based business Arian Technologies and Shopfront Solutions. Over the podcast series, our guests include pharmacists, retail managers, wholesalers, suppliers, and industry technology partners. If you would like further information on our podcast series or to participate in one of our episodes, feel free to send me a message or touch base through the Pharmacy View website, pharmacyview.com.au.